What up? What up? What up? What up? What up? Hello, everybody. I'm back. After a couple week hiatus, I'm back. What a busy couple weeks it's been. We had Vegas. We've actually partied harder when we, from the time we've gotten back from Vegas than in Vegas. In Vegas, Amanda's still prepping. She's kind of careful with what she's eating and trying not to go too hard the first day after she can't really eat. Um, she did good. She didn't do as good as we were hoping. Some coach difficulties, some drama in the background, but it was good. It was overall a good time. She looked great. She had her makeup professionally done for the first time, so it was kind of she looked hot. She looked really hot there. So that was interesting to watch, but um, it was a good time. Can't complain. And then not this next week, the following week, we go to Hawaii. So I'll do a podcast this next week. I'll do a podcast in Hawaii week after. So super excited for that, but also been super busy. Like I said, Amanda can't eat certain things. She can't really go out, low energy when she's cutting, when she's trying to lean out. So can't really go out much. So now that she's back, she's eating, happier. We can go out. I drank. Told you about the drunk podcast, but no. I mean, Eric already has a freaking picture of me in a crop top. I'm not giving you guys any more fuel. I'm this year you really haven't been able to give me too much shit. So I'm going to keep it that way. Speaking of, got my first loss week 5. Congratulations, Eric, on your first win. I told y'all, this is why we play the game. We play the game because you never know what's going to happen. And of course, and I knew it. I was like, okay, undefeated going against defeated, or like undefeated against winless. Of course the winless is going to win. Always happens that way. It's just, I really wasn't too upset though, because it was like one of those things. It's like, okay, I'm gonna get my first loss. I'm not going this whole season undefeated. As great as that would be, I'm not going undefeated. Like, there's gonna be a first loss somewhere, and I did. And of course, I had a good week. I was number 3 in points. So I honestly wasn't too upset. It's one of those, like, I'm not gonna get upset just because of the result. Like, my players did good. So, and it's not the championship. I will get upset if I lose a championship or lose playoffs. That's when results matter. It doesn't matter. You could score 12 points if your teammate, or if you're not teammate, your opponent scores 2 points. You win. It doesn't matter if you had an absolute terrible week. It doesn't matter during playoffs and championship. But you want to make sure your like team's looking good during the regular season, and that week it did. And so I was happy about that. Yeah, I guess we'll just jump right into it. This is week 5. So Eric gets the win over me. These are updated, so the records don't reflect what it was after week 5. Eddie's team's starting to cool off a little bit with 83 points. Paul had a rough week on week 5 as well. And then a team that's heating up, and we'll talk more about it, is Mr. Dre Campbell himself. No wonder he wants me to post a podcast. The guy's doing good. Like, I mean, the most I've heard from Dre Campbell here is the 2 weeks his team's going off. So I don't think that's a coincidence. And again, you need to change the name. Dre Campbell. That's your new name. A rough loss for Nate. I mean, it sucks to kind of get in that scoring range where what is that? That would make him 5th out of the week. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5th on points. So you went against one of those top 4. That's kind of rough, but reality of fantasy football. Then moving on to week 6, and like I said, Eddie's team kind of cooling off here. Couple rough weeks in a row. I mean, and this is where I'm talking about, like, I was more upset about this last week 6, than I was week 5, because 94 points, like, to me, it's not acceptable. I don't want to be scoring under 100 points. Points matter, especially I'm trying to get a first round bye. And that might be a little premature. There's still a lot of game left to play, but I'm trying to get that first round bye. So what's going to help that is points. There may be tiebreaker, and I want the first round bye. And I want to go against, I don't know now. We'll see. I want to go against Team 6 as of now, but not Team 6, lowest seed. But again, you never know. There's a lot of things that could change. There's a lot of things. So beyond that, like I said, Eddie's team's kind of simmering down. But you got Drake Campbell last week or 2 weeks ago, week 5, number 2 in points in the 140s. Not a bad time to be. That's kind of that's quite a bit. 130 seemed to be high. In a standard league, you get over 100 points, you're majority of the time you're going to be winning. In a half point PPR, I'd say anytime you're above 110, most of the time you're going to win, but not always. You get to anything north of 120, like you got a real good possibility, unless you got a really high scoring week, that the team across you is gonna lose. So, there's always going to be those weeks where you go against the number 1 team, their team goes off, but chances are like you're north of 120, so 130, close to 135, pretty much. This team's starting to heat up quite a bit. Another kind of a rough loss for Paul, and I know Paul's had kind of a rough couple weeks, but still, it's encouraging to be at least north of 100. I'd be more concerned if I was Eddie's team at 3-3, scoring under 90 points 2 weeks in a row, than I would be Paul's team that's had a couple rough matchups. And then you got Eric with another good week, another week of north of 125. So I'm sure he's happy about that. Team's starting to kind of turn around a little bit, show some hope. But yeah, you're kind of seeing some teams heat up, and this happens. I feel like in fantasy football, you kind of get a roller coaster of weeks. You get like a few week spurts where you're starting to do really well, and then you get a few weeks that it's like your team just kind of. Football's a tough sport, especially at the professional level. You got absolutely insane, abnormally sized humans coming and tackling you every single week. An offensive type fantasy football that there's a lot of wear and tear. Like us old couch potatoes don't fully understand because we're not getting hit every week, but you're essentially getting in a car wreck every single week. And you're gonna have weeks where you kind of get that just wrong hit, and you're not 100%, but you're gonna force yourself out there because you got a job to do. But I think it's just human nature, and I think it's natural to kind of. There's no team out there that's just gonna absolutely dominate unless it's a completely unfair league where you've got one team that's absolutely insane. But I'm starting to go off on a tangent here. But yeah, like I said, not too happy about last week, even though I got the dub. Didn't really feel like I deserved it all that well. I was 8th in points. So I just got lucky with a matchup. That's one of those things, results. And then apparently I got someone on the other side of me that isn't really cheering for my section here. Mr. Eric.
Let's go, Keith, like a buddy.
Yeah. I see you, Eric. I see you. Yeah, and another weird, what's weird about this is there are so many 3-3 teams. There's 5 3-3 teams. That's pretty much indicative of how, for the most part, even this league is. You have 10th place Eric, who could jump 3 spots if he beats Whitney, if I beat Brian, And then if I think it's Eddie going against Paul. If Eddie beats Paul, and yeah, if Eddie beats Paul, Eric would also have to make sure, that he outscores Brian by over a certain amount, which I think he can. Or even if Paul beats Eddie, do I got that right? Yeah. If Paul beats Eddie and Eric outscores Eddie by about 20 points, then Eric could jump from 10th all the way up to 7th. So it's a pretty big week for some people, and there's a few things that could be falling the right way. And also after this week, there's a real possibility that there are 5 3-4 teams. So you get Paul that beats Eddie, you get either one of these beats the other. So if Paul beats Eddie, that's 2. One of these 2 win, obviously, that's going to happen. Unless there's a tie, then I don't know what happens. But one of these 2 obviously going to win, and that's another 3 and 4. So that's 3. And then you have one of these 2 who's going to lose, so then that's 4. And then if you get Dre Campbell here that beats Austin, then that's 5 3-4 teams, which is that'll kind of really start to separate some of the teams out there. Oh, and then if I beat, so is that 6? So if I beat Brian, 1, Dre beats Austin, that's 2. One of these 2 is going to lose, 3. One of these 2 is going to win, 4. And then if Paul beats Eddie, that's 6. Dang. Okay, there could be 6 3-4 teams, which means that there's going to be 4 teams in playoff position with a losing record. Oh boy. This could be a really interesting. There's a lot of interesting parts going on this week, like not just fantasy, but inside the real football. So one thing I wanted to also touch on is, as we're getting closer, after this week, we're halfway through the regular season, which means we're kind of starting to see who's really making a push for playoffs, who's got a really good chance. This guy, maybe, knock on wood. Not superstitious, just a little stitious. And then who's kind of starting to fall behind. And so I was kind of looking, and I'm sure there are some nerds out there, and I was right. There are some nerds out there that kind of calculate what percentage chance are that you can make playoffs based on wins. And I've kind of talked about and touched on it last year. Like, there's 14 games in the regular season, and then those 14 games decide who makes playoffs and who doesn't. And so I was kind of looking, because I know, like, when you go 0-3, I think you get right around a 10% chance of making playoffs. Like, that's pretty low. If you go 3-0, then you get like a 91% chance of making playoffs. And these are all just percentages. Anything could really happen. And every league is different. Like, this one's going to be a lot different, because there's possibility that you have 6 teams that are 3-4. And so a losing record like that, you're not going to have a good chance. But not everyone's going to miss the playoffs. So, yeah. So I was looking at it, and if you have 8 wins at the end of 14, or at the end of regular season, you have a 60% chance of making playoffs. 7 wins, you have a 20%. Like bare minimum in the league history, it's pretty much 7 wins to make the playoffs. And if you have 6 wins, you only have a 2% chance of making playoffs. And so, these wins are going to start becoming really crucial, along with your points as well, because that's going to be a lot of tiebreaker, especially with a lot of teams being tied in record. Your points are going to mean a lot. So even if you lose, you still want a high score. Obviously, but I think it's just going to become more important moving forward. So if you look at these teams that are here at the bottom, the 8 through 10, you pretty much, if you want a shot, you're going to want 7 wins. So you're pretty much saying at this point that these teams have to go 5-2 in order to have a chance to make the playoffs. That's going to be tough. It's not impossible. And in my head, there's at least going to be one of those teams that's going to make that. But chances are you cannot go 4-3. No, that'd be 4-4. You can't go 500. I'm not mathing right here. I am mathing right. Yeah, you cannot go 4-4 and expect to have a good jet. That's not going to make it. You have to at least have 7 wins. So I think that's going to be your guys' target mark here. Paul, Whitney, and Eric. You want to go 5-2. No, 5-3. Holy crap. I cannot math. You're going to want to at least go 5-3. Which it's possible, but I believe only one of you. I don't know. Maybe there's 2. I've got my thoughts. We'll go over it in power rankings. But yeah, some things that's happened inside the NFL. Some big moves going on. We got, and I think this affects very little. Steelers players have not been like a big fantasy impact other than like Najee Harris. I think as long as you have Russell Wilson, I don't believe that team's going to be any good. Like they're only good on the rushing upside. So like going out and getting Jalen Warren, I don't think is a smart move until Justin Fields is named the starter again. Justin Fields, irrelevant. Najee Harris, in my head, irrelevant until Justin Fields comes back because Russell Wilson can't. He's not going to be able to rush at all. He's an old man. He is an old man and he can't rush like he used. He can't be evasive like he was. And he put on some pounds. Like the guy's thick. He put on muscle. I'm not just saying like fat. He's put on muscle. And I just think we've seen in the past he's just not mobile like he used to be. And then we've got a few trades that have happened. One that affects the guy that's kind of slowing down here a little bit, and I think could use a little bit of a boost. Davante Adams to the New York Jets. Apparently, he's supposed to be playing this week. I don't think that's a terrible idea to throw him on the bench. I think he's just going to be a huge red zone threat. And I really think this is going to kind of work out. Like, I think I didn't play like major sports in high school, but I played enough with friends where it was like you could tell who had that chemistry with each other and who did not. And like you could have 2 really good, talented players that on their own, very talented, but you put them together and they don't mesh. And then you get 2 average players that have chemistry. Something beautiful to see. And I don't think that people take that for granted enough. And so I think Davante Adams is going to be a huge weapon along with Marvin Harrison Jr. I think that team's going to kind of turn it around the second half of the year. They've got a few tough matchups secondary wise, but after the bye, I really think Marvin Harrison is going to start going off. My dogs always like they don't move a muscle. And then I get up and I start doing things, and then they're like, "Oh, it's time to play." So Sammy's over here making loud noises in the background. But yeah, I think this team can really kind of start turning things around. And then another player that's going to get affected by a recent big trade, and I think there's going to be more big trades that are going to affect, but I think it's kind of nice to have these players affected earlier. That way it gives them time to kind of develop, and it's more impactful during the actual fantasy season and not towards the playoffs, real life playoffs, when we're all done with our fantasy football. But another player that I think is going to get affected, and maybe people are thinking that in the bad, but I think if anything, it's going to be in the good, is Amari Cooper to Buffalo. I think Amari Cooper is going to get a lot of attention drawn to him. And I think it's also going to help open up that book. And I think they've been winning games without Amari Cooper. I think they're bringing in Amari Cooper because they're like, okay, we've gone from one extreme to where we just solely relied on Josh Allen and that didn't work. And now we've turned around and we've seen like the impact that it has on James Cook or some of our top running backs to where they're getting injured or they're getting banged up because we're using them too much. Let's find a happy medium and be a more balanced offense. And I think if anything, it's just going to benefit everybody. And so I think Dalton Kincaid after a couple weeks, he's going to also get a boost. And if you look at this, like you take a step back, you look at this team, Tank Dell without a Nico Collins, he's going to continue to get a lot of work. Patrick Mahomes, although I don't think he's good for fantasy, he's still like the current GOAT or current best quarterback. He's going to end up being the GOAT. And then you throw in Marvin Harrison in place of Josh Downs, Devontae Adams instead of Ladd McConkey. And you got Breece Hall. We saw that they got rid of Salah and they're like, we're feeding this guy. He is our centerpiece. We're feeding this guy. Now, I don't know how that's going to do now. I don't know if that's going to be the case now with Devontae Adams there. But we'll find out. We will find out one way or another. But the most recent game we saw, they fed him the ball. And they've been doing nothing but feeding Kyron the ball. So I think this team gets a big boost. But I think it's going to take a little bit of time. So, and we'll go over that a little bit more. Another team that got affected, and this guy needed it. Another team that I feel is kind of cooling down a little bit. Let me look. Will it tell me your... No, I don't want to look at that. Oh, that's stupid. I wish it would give me... Like, I want to see your last... Okay. This is this week. I think yep. Mr. Organic. Let's see here. Oh, no, Jesus. Go right back to... Well, how did you do in week 3? Damn Yahoo. Week 3. Oh, you've lost. You're 1-3 in the last 4 weeks. But you kind of got... That was a decent week. You just kind of got the wrong matchup. But you're still 1-3 in the last 4 weeks. So, I mean, in my eyes, you're looking for a boost. You're like, all right, this team's kind of starting to... And I mean, usually I would record this earlier. But that was kind of rough to see. But there was news Devon Achane is definitely playing this week. You've got Christian McCaffrey. There's talks he's coming back. I think they even have him projected points in Dallas. I wouldn't be surprised if they waited till after the bye week. They might just kind of see how things are going. And I really think that coaches, I think Shanahan is on the hot seat. So I think they're going to see, how do we do against Kansas City? Do we hand them their first loss? If we don't, we're going to need some weapons versus Dallas. Dallas has not been good, but they're still Dallas. Like, it's a talented team, and you know that Dallas is going to show up for that game. So I think for sure Christian McCaffrey comes in after week 9. And you've got Amari Cooper now on the Buffalo Bills. Amari he's a good player. He's had Massage Watson throwing him the ball. Like, you can't blame the guy for not producing. And then Mike Evans on Tampa Bay, who's been an absolute juggernaut on offense. Alvin Kamara has been good, although he had a rough week this week. Achane is going to get only better when Tua gets back. This team is set up to be pretty stacked if and when healthy. Now you're kind of counting on everybody to get healthy at the same time and late in the season. But this, in my eyes, this is a team to watch for. in a few weeks. For now, you got a banged up Mike Evans. You got Alvin Kamara didn't produce. Achane is just not a big enough dude to be able to like run through the tackles and run people over. He's good when they stretch the field and he can get in space. But without Tua, I just don't think he's as effective. And Tucker Kraft, he's a huge upside, but you're kind of hoping like it's a boomer bust in my eyes. And Mooney's been a really good pickup. But some teams that have been affected by trades, I think if anything, it's both good. It's good on both parts. And there are not really any. No one has Massage Watson. No one really has any Browns players other than the running backs. So I don't think it affects it on that side. And then the Raiders. The only relevant Raider is Brock Bowers, who's on. See, I'm getting better at my transitions here. Who's on Dre Campbell's team? I'm looking for Dre Campbell, but all I do is ugly win is what I'm finding. Which brings me to my power rankings. I do not have me as the number one. Like I said, I'm happy I won last week, but I'm not happy with the performance. So, and this is the hottest team over the last couple weeks. Besides, maybe you could argue Eric, but number one in points has been consistently good. Let's see here. Destroyed Nate, destroyed Whitney. I wouldn't say destroyed, but beat Paul with 135. I beat him, but he still put up pretty good points. Let's see, week 2, how did you do? Week 2, under 100 points. Worst week has been 98 points. Other than that, honestly, Dre Campbell has been absolutely killing it. And that's a product of his team that has absolutely been killing it. He's got the number... and don't take my word for it. He's got the number 3 quarterback overall in the league. RB's rankings, 1 and 6 for Derrick Henry and David Montgomery. Mixon, who hasn't played very much but has looked really well when on the field, number 4 in points per game for running backs. And then his wide receivers, number 5 for Drake London. He's been a touchdown machine, and that offense is just getting better and better every week. His worst player has been Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's number 23. That's been, like, imagine you have, like, your worst team is Amon-Ra, worst team. Your worst player is Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I'm actually kind of like, sometimes when I talk, I've got, like, other things I'm thinking about. I've actually got something I maybe will point out next week. I got to look more into it. But yeah, I mean, imagine like you're in your lineup and you're like, oh, and I didn't even look at tight ends. Brock Bowers, though, I'm pretty sure has been the number 1. If not, number 2. And then if not, like if we're doing a redraft, Brock Bowers, number 1. And he's the only target. Like they're going to feed him. This team is just way too good. And he's got Tyron Tracy, who I was like looking, I was like, oh, maybe I should go put him up on the waivers. Or I think I don't know when I was looking at him, but freaking Dre has him too. George Pickens, yes, he hasn't done as well as a lot of people were hoping, but the guy's still a beast, and we'll see. Maybe Russell is still Russell. I don't think so, but maybe he is, and he'll start putting up wide receiver 1. And then Brian Thomas Jr. is only going to get better every week. And I think they're going to fire the coach. I'm saying upset New England over Jaguars. The Jaguars leave Doug Peterson in London. Don't allow him on the plane. And then this team kind of turns it around. Although that is a rough looking end of year schedule. But for this season, for like the regular season, Brian Thomas Jr., the guy's been an absolute dog. And that's on your bench. Like, this team is the scariest team, hands down, I would say right now. And keep in mind, when I'm doing my power rankings, like, I try to do a balance of like right now, and because if I did a power rankings of right now, it would just be based on who scored the most points this last week. But I don't want to do that because there's also long term. And there are players coming up. There are players that are injured that are coming back. So I kind of did my power rankings with the next 3 weeks in mind. And so next up, I think it's got to be me. And I would say, like, right now, it's Dre and I in tier 1. And then you got to skip a tier. And then I just think we're the 2 best teams right now. Not to say that I think other teams are going to start to like improve as the year goes on and definitely close that gap. But right now, I mean, you can see it in the rankings. You've got, and you could see it in the projected points. Like, if I had to bet right now, I'd say, especially with poor Brian got a goose egg on Thursday night. I would say I'm going to beat Brian. Knock on wood. Especially with all my players now getting healthy. You've got Dre Campbell's going to continue his hot streak, run over Austin. I would say here, this one's kind of a toss-up. I don't know. This one's a toss-up, I would say. You could go either way, but I'll say Nate, just kind of off projections and new team. Injuries not directed to their players, but that directly impact their players. I'm going to say Whitney. I'll get more into that too. Her defense put up 20 points. It's hard to recover from that if you're on the other side, and some other factors. And then I think Paul. Like, I honestly think by the end of this week there are going to be 6 3-4 teams, and on top is going to be me at 6-1, and Dre at 5-2. And then beyond that, everyone else is going to be at least 2 games behind. And then beyond that, I don't think anyone's going to catch us unless someone has an absolutely insane big day. Mr. Organic is the closest to me, who's in second. Unless he outscores my team by 35 points, but with Alvin Kamara putting up a dud, I don't see that happening. Like, we are 2 games ahead. On top of that, we're better in points. So I think there's a tier break. I really do. So I would put me at 2 easily. I think I've talked about it before. I look at this team and I don't see very many. I mean, Kyler Murray could be doing better. I could be doing better on my quarterback. I'm going to go see if Sam Darnold's still a hot start after the bye week. I might even start him, just with Kyler Murray maybe not having Marvin Harrison. I think I might start Sam Darnold, but I look at my 3-headed. I look at Jamar Chase. Thank you, Eric. Justin Jefferson and a healthy Malik Neighbors. There's no better trio in the league than that. I just hands down. That's just the reality of it. If you don't like it, too bad. Number 3, I'm going to put Paul. And I struggle with this. I struggle with the power rankings today more than I usually do, just because there's so many different moving parts. Players getting hurt, players now getting healthy. There's some things that are going to be affected, trades. But I'm going to put Paul. And the reason why is I think Stephon Diggs is going to start making himself more of the alpha. Deebo Samuel's such a diverse player. Aaron Rodgers has got his boyfriend back. Jordan Mason's he's healthy. Jahmyr Gibbs is always a really safe floor play. And Aaron Jones, if healthy, is a really good player. I'm really honestly surprised that you're not starting Xavier Worthy. On a big game like that, I feel like that's just going to be, they're going to come to play. and they're going to be scoring lots of points. I would put Xavier Worthy over maybe injured Aaron Jones, and then he's got Jalen Waddle as his wide receiver 4. Ricky Pearsall, guy's supposed to play. I don't think he's going to be fantasy relevant this year, but it'll be interesting to see. But starting lineup, I think it's just a solid squad. There's nothing that really wows you, but it's a solid squad that I think very high floor for everybody. So I could just see Paul being a good, consistent team moving forward, and he could be one of those teams that shoots at 5-3 and then makes the playoffs out of those 2 and 4 teams. And then number 4, I went back and forth between 4 and 5, and I think 5 might surprise a few people, but if you don't like it, too bad. Number 5, I've got Eddie. And Eddie's had a rough couple weeks, but I think this is a turnaround week. I think Paul squeaks one out, but I think out of this week, it'll be a close one. And the reason why I don't have you winning this week, but I have you as 5, I talked about it. Marvin Harrison, I think he's still that number 1 prospect for wide receivers this year. Like, there was no question he was going before Malik Nabers. It just hasn't panned out quite yet, but I think that's just the offensive struggles, and I think Arizona will figure it out. And Devontae Adams now back with Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be red zone machine. If he can be scoring touchdowns, which I think he will now start scoring touchdowns instead of just being a yards guy, he's going to be a really good high floor with a decent ceiling. I'm not saying a high ceiling, but a decent ceiling. The guy's still kind of he's getting old, and he's getting into his last couple years. That, along with the other things I talked about, best RB duo, I would say, in the league, even over Austin's Saquon and Jonathan Taylor, just because JT has not been consistent, and we saw how much Breece Hall got the rock. I think this is going to be a dangerous team. I think you might have one more struggle of a week, but then I can definitely see things turn around. Number 5, I've got Whitney. Whitney, I looked at this team and I'm like, damn, like, how are you not winning more? Like, if you really look at it, I think, and this is a scary thing, eventually, I don't know when Isaac Pacheco, he's supposed to be back week 9, according to these ranking or the projections. So having him back would be huge. And Puka Nacua, he'll be a volume monster. And I think they learned their lesson last year with Cooper Kupp, so I think they're not going to let him come back till he's absolutely healthy. But even without those two, Zay Flowers, the guy got 9 targets, 12 targets. He's been a target machine. He's had 2 rough weeks, but besides that, he's been averaging around those 10 targets. So in a half-point PPR, and look at the yards, back-to-back over 100. He hasn't even got touchdowns. Like, there's a positive touchdown regression due for Zay Flowers. And then the steal of the draft, absolutely, Chris Godwin has been a beast. He had the 2 rough weeks, he scored over 9 points. Like, those are his 2 rough weeks. The guy has been an absolute monster. Those are 2 really good, underrated wide receivers. And then Deontay Johnson, since Andy Dalton took over, has had 1 bad week. Other than that, has scored over 15 points every week. And now he's got an easy Washington matchup. This is where I see Whitney beating Eric. And Bijan finally getting the rock in the end zone and getting a couple touchdowns. It was against Carolina. I love my Seahawks, but we seem to struggle against really good running backs. We'll see if we can stop him, but I see him continuing his ascension. And then Brock Purdy, he's just been a solid guy. I think this team is underrated, and out of long term, I say this is the best 2 and 4 team right now. Number 6 is Austin. Austin, the poor guy he's also been struggling with some injuries. One thing I guess he did get. At first, I would say he won the Travis Kelsey trade, but I don't know now. Like we'll see. We'll see how. I don't know. We'll see. I think Evan Ingram is a better player, and I actually put in a waiver for him. I didn't get him. I think Brain did, but I think this is the most like if you combined roster and bench players, this is the best overall team. But there's just no one here other than Saquon that really wows you. He had a really good first couple weeks. After that, Bucky Irving scored 17 points. Like anyone can have a good 1 week. We'll see if he can stay consistent. He's always been really good when he's played, but he hasn't played a full season. Like we'll see how his body reacts and how he reacts to playing a full season. And that's where I try to avoid old players, is because they always start off super hot and they're just old. They can't recover like they did, and they start to kind of taper down. And that's where I kind of worry about Travis Kelsey leading into the back half of the year. Is he's an older guy. Like can he keep this consistency and this volume now that Rashee Rice is down? I don't know. Jonathan Taylor's been injured. Like I said, there's no one that really wows me other than Saquon Barkley, but it's a good team. It's a solid, like the Vikings have been solid. Brandon Ayuk is a good player. He just needs things to click. He missed the he missed the beginning of training camp, and I think it's showing now. I talked about that already, but I do think that as the weeks go by, he'll get better and better. But right now, like I said, no one really wows me. It's a middle of the pack team. It's got a lot of talent. I think there are better teams out there. Next up, Mr. Organic, which I'm gonna put you 7, but I think out of like maybe aside from Eddie, no, I would say like if you look at who can be the most improved players or improved teams on like the second half of the year, I would say for sure Mr. Organic is one of those teams. Him and Eddie. Oh, did things are changing here. Things are changing on the recording. All right. I think we had Mooney down here last time I looked. Throwing me off a little bit here. But if everybody can get healthy at the same time, and not just these players, but players around them, and teams kind of develop with each other, this could be one of the scarier teams. You got Lamar Jackson, who one of, if not, like besides Jaden Daniels and apparently Baker Mayfield right now, best quarterback. Amari Cooper, who could be the one for Josh Allen. Mike Evans, who's been an absolute dog this year, if he can stay healthy. You get Tua that comes back, stretch the field, helps out Achane. Alvin Kamara, who has, I think, been directly affected by Derek Carr not being there, and Olave and Shaheed getting injured. Like, of course, they're gonna focus and make sure Alvin Kamara is not getting an open space. But you could bring those guys back. I mean, besides Shaheed, because I think he's out for the year. But you bring a lot of those key players back, and Taysom Hill as well. Alvin Kamara starts feasting again, and then Darnell Mooney keeps on keeping on. Like, the guy's been really good, and you can argue he's been number one wide receiver there. This is a scary looking team. If not only these players, and you're not even including Christian McCaffrey, who's we know can be a cheat code. You bring all these players together healthy. This is a team that I could see winning landslide last 5 games of the year. And that's where I think for you, Mr. Organic, you're going into week. You're looking at it right now. I think there's still a chance to win. I mean, you don't win and you don't lose on Thursday night, so there's obviously a chance. I think you go into week 10 hoping that you're 5-5 at least. I mean, of course you're going to hope better than that, but if you're 5-5 after week 10, things start kind of going your way. This could be a really scary team. And Mr. Organic is not known for being good in the second half. This might be a year that it changes. Number 8, you're always here. That's just your comfort spot. Nate. Jordan Love's been best quarterback points per game. He's been really good. Jaden Reed has been the clear number 1. DK, there's some frustrations there, but I mean, I'm biased, but I think they turned some things around and improved the offense, how it's coordinated a little bit. Wide receivers, really solid. George Kittle, as long as he plays, one of the best tight ends. Devontae Smith, really good player. The problem here, I've said it every week. I'm going to say it again. And Tyreek, once Tua gets back, he'll be really good too, again. I've said it every single week. I'll say it again. You don't got shit for running backs. You got Kareem Hunt, who I don't even know how old he is. I think I talked about this already. He's old. Austin Eckler, the guy is not, he's in a shared backfield. Like, he's not going to be the Austin Eckler that we've seen in the past. His best week was, he had the, yes, it was against Baltimore, but he had the backfield to himself. Like, it's going to be a committee, and I really think Brian Robinson is the red zone guy. He'll be good this week because it's against Carolina, but Travis Etienne is losing his job as we speak. You're screwed at running back. You need to do something. So I can't rank you too high without a complete team. Like, we've seen it with, you are the Cowboys. You've got a good team everywhere besides running back. Dallas Cowboys right here. And I feel like that just fits Nate. He would be one of those, we them boys. Moving on. And someone might be a little upset that I've got them last, because this is going to show who's last. And maybe I'm throwing a little bit of shade that way, but I'm going to say Brain is 9th. It's a good team. Right now, you just have some injury. You've got Chris Olave that's injured, but without Shaheed, he's going to get more volume. CeeDee Lamb, he got called out. I don't know if you guys saw, but he got called out, specifically him, by, who's that idiot? Troy Aikman. He got called out by Troy Aikman. The guy's going to be, like, if anything, you're just going to fuel his fire, which I think that's what he's trying to do. That, along with now Josh Allen has a number 1 weapon, and he can still run, and you got a possibly banged up James Cook, where they might want him to run him a little bit more. Josh Jacobs, always said it, volume guy. Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears is injured and has not been relevant. Tony Pollard has looked like a legit running back 1. I think this is a more complete team and a better team than most people are thinking. I'm getting kind of lucky this week because you've got CD on a bye, and you got Chris Olave that was ruled out. And even if he was in, there was a rookie quarterback. Well, I mean, he would have done better than 0, but it was still a rookie quarterback. I don't think he would have put up big numbers. And I don't think that there's no shot for you to win. I obviously think there's a shot for you. Like I said, you don't win, you don't lose on Thursday night. I do like my team. That's why I got them. I like them. Romeo Dobbs, is that who Nate was telling you to start? Let's see here. Well, yeah, I think that's one of your better. That's one of your better options. He just, I don't know though. I would see if Wicks is hurt or not. If Wicks is hurt, definitely throw in Dobbs. But if Wicks is there, I think he eats into, and see how Christian Watson, see how he's been trending. If he's been practicing in full, I think that affects Dobbs. I think Christian Watson, his first game back, like I would be, if I were you, I would be throwing Chris Olave on your IR, and I would go to the waiver. This is my opinion. Let's see here. Here's what I will do, and I don't know. I could be completely wrong. You motherfucker! Did you drop Evan Ingram? I'm gonna go pick him up after this. I like Xavier Legette. I'd like him. I think he'll be good against Washington. I think he'll get it better. I don't know. Maybe Dobbs is your best. Or even Alan Lazard. I'm surprised he's out here. Yeah, they picked up Adams. I guess, yeah, that's kind of. But for a 1 week flyer, let's see, Wicks. Questionable. Okay, I guess I'd go Dobbs. Anyway, good luck this week, Brian. Just kidding. Not actually. Good luck to everybody but Brian and Eric. My number 10. Now, yeah, Eric, you've done really good. You've done really good this last couple weeks. But I think it's time to come back to reality. It's time for you to land back on planet Earth. I think you're about to fall back to. I think it's time to come off the high, back to reality. Let's look at my team last year. Lost 4 straight. Sound familiar? Then absolutely went off on week. Oh, of course it was against Jeff. Poor Jeff. Jeff. Then went off. I didn't go off, but I got a W in week 6. And then I came back to reality. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen right here. You got a good player here in AJ Brown. Like if I redid drafting, I think I picked Garrett Wilson over AJ Brown. Not the smartest day of my life, but I would go back to AJ. I would go pick AJ Brown versus Garrett Wilson. So I would say AJ Brown's really solid. Chuba Hubbard against Washington, I think he'll have a decent game. Stevenson, I think he's still kind of on the hot seat. Garrett Wilson, you've got a wide receiver 1 coming into town, take his targets. Terry McLaurin, I think they're just going to run. I don't think they will. I think they're just going to run. I don't think they need Terry McLaurin, so I don't think they'll use him as much. And Sam Laporta, in my eyes, has been an absolute bust this year. He got 1 target, 1 reception for a touchdown, and it was on a trick play. Like the only way that this guy's gotten a touchdown is on a trick play against a Dallas team who got 47 points. You score 47 points and your supposed tight end 1 only got 1 reception out of those 47 points, but it was off of a trick play. In my eyes, he's a big bust this year. And like I said, Garrett Wilson going against Pittsburgh defense. Also, you have the wide receiver 1 coming into town. Joe Burrow against I don't think they'll need to score a lot of points against Cleveland. I think he has maybe an off day. Maybe I'm biased because you were rooting against me. But maybe I'm right. I think Swift had a pretty good game, but I think he's one of those guys. He's just too inconsistent. DJ Moore, I think he'll have inconsistency, which he has. I think the inconsistency will continue. Yeah, he's got a good matchup or good schedule after the bye week. But I think there's just too much inconsistency there. Chase Brown, he can't be like that lead back. And Nick Chubb, I hope he does well, but I don't think he will. He's old. That's a huge injury to come off of. I mean, look at Javonte Williams. He's taken like a year and a half, and he's had some good games, but he's just not been that consistent back that we were hoping he would continue to be. So I think this team just comes back down to earth. I think you had a couple, like, I will change my mind if you go off this week. I think going off 2 weeks in a row is a fluke. 3 is when you start to get more consistent. Look at the Saints. They went off the first 2 weeks, and then after that, they've lost 5 straight. I think you had 2 really good weeks. I think you come back down to earth and maybe even out a little bit. I don't think you'll be as bad as you were, but I think you're going to definitely come back down to reality. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. I was going to say I hope your team proves me wrong, but I don't. We're almost at an hour. Jeez. But I guess I haven't. This is 2 weeks worth, so it is what it is. But yeah, like I said, I'll be doing a podcast this next week. Then the week after, I'm in Hawaii. Let's go. Super, super stoked for that. That is an actual true vacation. Although I'll be working a little bit, but honestly, like, my work consists of sending a few emails and then spending the rest of my day on fantasy. Although it's been busy this week with a few things, but good to be back. Hope you guys enjoyed the content. It'll be interesting. I'm really excited. Like, I've said this before. This is my favorite. This is my favorite league. I mean, yeah, we do some shit talking. Some people cross some lines. I would say even me. Eric, I would like for you to apologize to Lindsay on my behalf for telling the truth. Just kidding. But actually, maybe that crossed the line. And I apologize for that. That's maybe a little bit uncalled for. Oh, boy, I cracked myself up. I'm honestly sitting here laughing by myself in a basement. How creepy is that? But yeah. So good luck to everybody this week. I really hope, I'm sorry for those that are on the bad end of this, but I really hope, it probably won't happen, but I really hope there are 6 3-4 teams. That would be kind of insane, but kind of awesome at the same time. So good luck to Dre Campbell. Good luck to Whitney, myself, and the rest of you, besides Brian. Hope you all have a good weekend. Peace out.